like to welcome everyone to the show tonight, I guess, for lack of a better word. Thank you, Randy, for inviting us to do this. We're proud to be a part of the Columbus community as long as we have. To start, I think what I wanted to do is there may be a few people here that don't know me. I see a smattering of relatives, a smattering of former employees, current employees, long-time employees that are in here, but many that some might not know who I am. I'm kind of the lost child of the Duffy family because I didn't grow up in Columbus. I actually, I always go to this picture. My wife will tell you this is my favorite picture because it was the best hair day I've ever had. That's me in high school. My parents moved, my mom, John and Joan Duffy, obviously they're pictured with me. My mother's here with us today. Moved to Madison in 1987, and I actually went to Oregon High School. So I didn't grow up in town here and probably hang out with a lot of the rabble-rousers that I now know from Columbus. But I graduated from UW-Madison in 2002 and MBA from Whitewater in 2012, and my wife and I moved back to Columbus in 2013 and lived here ever since. Further, the rest of my family would be, I already introduced my mom, Joan, my father, John. We'll talk more about him later. My brother, Pat, in the background there, who couldn't make it tonight because he's so afraid of public speaking. He had to fly to Greece to get away.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, flew to Greece. My sister, Sean, who's also here with us tonight. My sister, Erin, on the far right there, who couldn't make it tonight because she's working. She's got an excuse. She's over in Michigan at the moment. So that's our family. That was one of the last pictures of the family together at my college graduation in 2002. So go on from there. Thought I'd talk a little bit more about Duffy Brothers, the company that is today, because many people don't know the things that we're involved in and some of the things that we do. To kind of highlight some of that, obviously we're still in trucking. This is a truck that we're pretty proud of. We had on the road here for a couple of years. Kind of mimics some of the older looks of the trucks and the cab overs of the days gone by that you don't see so much here in the United States anymore. We're proud of this truck because it won a trophy at the Waupun Truck Show, first place for in its category. There were no other trucks in the category, so, that was a proud day. Obviously, most of you are familiar with our location here in Columbus. That's we've been at for years. Originally, Duffy Brothers Truck, livestock and trucking, as well as now the grain elevator that we have now. So, included in all those family of businesses, or the family of family businesses, is Duffy Brothers, obviously established in 1928, trucking company, and currently has a landscaping portion to it. Many of you may have ordered mulch or different things from us. Duffy Grain, which is established in 1976, is a merchandising and storage company for local grains, corn, wheat, and soybeans. Oh, oops, wrong button. Duffy Rentals, which we established in 2012. We have some apartment buildings here in town, as well as a home that we rent out. Duffy Ventures is a land and property company that my brother and I run. And then Duffy Properties is another property company that we have within the Duffy Brother umbrella. So that's kind of a picture of where we're at today. Some of the landscaping supplies pictures that we have. In the first 4-unit apartment, we have 2 4-unit apartments right across the creek from us, there at Duffy Brothers, and there's a house down the street that we rent out as well. So now go back in time to tell you kind of a little bit more about where we came from. So originally, John Duffy, which would be my great-great-grandfather, was born in Wicklow County in Ireland in 1809, and emigrated to the United States, likely due to the potato famine. That information wasn't readily available to me. But one thing we're very proud of is that my grandmother, Margaret Duffy, took the time to really write out a lot of the family history. So we have family trees and whatnot. Part of the family tree that we're working with tonight, well, my pointer doesn't work on the screen, is the far left side, which is the side of the tree that we come from. So when John Duffy came over, he settled southeast of Columbus here, just out by Asco and what now is Duffy Road on the original farmstead. In the early years, this is a picture of my grandfather. These are the children of John Duffy Jr., so he'd be the son of the John Duffy that came from Ireland. And This is a picture of my grandfather and my great uncle Joe Duffy and great aunt Helen Duffy, and two that aren't pictured in this are siblings Genevieve and Arthur Duffy. Could not find a picture of those youngsters. This is a picture of my grandfather, Tom Duffy. That's at his first communion, and then guessing somewhere in his teenage years there. So from the beginning, the early years, 1923, Art, Tom, and Joe Duffy delivered milk via milk wagon, a milk wagon team to the Borden Company built that year from the home farm while attending high school. And in 1924, Tom Duffy's father, John Duffy, purchased a Ford Roadster from A.H. Proctor, which is a local company. I have a little ad on the side of the screen there from them that I was able to locate while I learned how to use microfilm at the local library. I joke that's the first time I've been in a library in 25 years. So it was interesting. Needle in a haystack is what I was looking for, I think. So they then removed from that truck what was known as the Turtle, and it was a box was fastened to the frame to make what is now known as a pickup truck. So a lot of these notes came from my grandmother's memoirs that she had written down over the years, so a lot of them are quoted directly from her. The first truck could hold about 12 cans of milk at 10 gallons each, so that was a lot of manual labor that they were struggling through at the time. My grandfather Tom was quoted as saying, "When the team and wagon were replaced, we were very happy." So made life a little easier for them. This is purportedly the first truck, although I don't know that I believe that, but it is an old truck for sure.
It looks like a map.
So that's a picture of the Borden Milk Company that Randy had helped me out with from the local calendar, right? That the Historical Society puts out. Those are always neat to see. So then beginning in the late 1920s, in 1927, Tom purchased the first dedicated milk truck from Marshall Wright in Columbus. And Tom and Joe continued delivering milk to various plants with the pickup truck. And in 1928, the Columbus Milk Producers Co-op was formed. And then Milk Producers Co-op began delivering to the Floyd Dairy near Asheville that became known as the Alto Dairy in Asheville. In 1928, Joe Duffy was approached by a group of farmers to haul milk for them, which he took them up on. And the business that was then formed at that point in 1928 it included family members such as Jane, Joe's wife, Margaret, Tom's wife, which is my grandfather and grandmother, and then Art Duffy, who was the youngest sibling of Tom and Joe. They were all very important parts of the business, from the day-to-day operations to the bookkeeping to all the other things. My sister Sean likes to point out that Jane Duffy always was known for her little candy bars that could never run out, and all the kids would come with their parents to Duffy's to get the small, tiny candy bars. So then in the 30s and 40s, John Duffy, Tom's father, passed away in 1931, leaving my great-grandmother alone to raise Tom and all the kids. So my grandmother describes it as a very difficult time for the family as they worked through not having a father. But during the 30s, more trucks were added, and Duffy Brothers began hauling livestock to Patrick Cudahy in Milwaukee, Madison, and Chicago, meatpacking plants that many of you may be familiar with the Cudahy meats. And by 1935, Duffy's had 6 trucks operating in support of the livestock industry. And by 1941, they began hauling dairy cattle to neighboring states and beyond. Move on to the 30s and 40s. In 1943, Tom and Margaret and my young John, my father, moved to town on Baden Street. The barn on the property was relocated back deeper on the property to create the stockyard building. The purchase price at that time for that house and barn was $4,500, which I thought was a steal. Then you consider inflation. So, first tractor trailer unit was purchased in 1946, and by 1950, 4 trucks were in operation, tractor trailer units. 1946, the livestock scale and stockyards were built on that current location where we are now. And as true Irishmen. You'll see a picture here of my grandfather Tom in the back, my great uncle Joe, and Francis O'Rourke. I don't know if anybody remembers Francis O'Rourke, but yeah, lived up to their Irish heritage, and probably aren't drinking soda or anything. I'd like to mention that during the time that we were starting the company, that my grandfather Tom and grandmother Margaret were very instrumental in the city of Columbus and getting involved in different things. Major supporters of the Columbus community, such things as the creation of the first national bank, St. Jerome's Church, St. Jerome's Elementary School, Columbus Community Hospital, the Knights of Columbus, Rotary, and many more associations and things that we really were involved in as time went on. So now we get to, that is my father, John, and my aunt, Mary Ellen, who just got back from Arizona late last night and couldn't make it. She texted me just before this, saying she wishes she could make it. So then in the 1950s, all types of livestock were purchased during these years, as well as milk hauling, with Duffy collecting a commission on purchasing from meat packing plants, as well as paid to haul the animals by the plants to their facilities. Joe Duffy unfortunately passed away in 1954 from cancer, which left Tom as the remaining brother in the business at the time. 1955, we purchased our first bulk milk truck, which meant an end to lifting the cans from the water-cooled tanks onto the truck. So I bet you my grandfather was happy about that as well. At the time, Duffy was serving 65 farmers in the area, all belonging to the Columbus Co-op. But then as farmers started to join other organizations, like the NFO, the AMPI, milk routes were then sold off to an employee at the time, Ken Fritz, who ran those milk routes for many, many years to come. So some of the destinations that we had delivered to throughout the years were pretty astounding to me. I was talking to a former employee, Bob Whitman, telling me about more than I have on here. And I'd like to mention that, you know, there wasn't a lot written down. There's not a lot of history that is readily available on a lot of this. And unfortunately, I hadn't maybe spent the time talking to my father about some of these things that he could have filled me in on. But I just got an education from Bob to the extent that I'm missing some things on here. And this is maybe just a start. We're approaching 100 years in business. So putting this together was definitely interesting, and I look to add to it, so maybe when we get to 100 years, we can have a very full history to share. So, for some of the destinations we did deliver to at that point were, my grandma had pointed out in her memoir, was Pennsylvania, Maryland, Florida. In Florida, some of these cattle were then sent on to Cuba, Central and South America. Bob was telling me prior to the show tonight that they delivered the cattle right to the airport and put them right on the plane as they delivered. And he was also sharing that some of these trips that were a little bit more exotic, shall we say, that even the local news companies came out and filmed the cattle being loaded and whatnot. So it was neat to hear from Bob on some of those. I'm sure there's more stories we could have there. So, as well as California, my grandma pointed out that they were shipped to Japan at that point as well. So the cattle that we hauled was shipped all over the world, and because of the quality of the dairy cattle that we had here in Wisconsin. So, and some people might accuse Duffy as providing California with too many dairy cows too. That's business, I guess. So, feeder cattle were always sought to be brought back as a backhaul to Illinois and Wisconsin for finishing to be sold at the prime beef markets in Chicago, St. Paul, Milwaukee, and Kansas City. So here's a picture of the Duffy family farm out on Duffy Road from 1959. That farm stayed in the family until 1975, and at that point was sold. Bacon Family Farms currently run that farm. Some the pictures from the farm back in the day. That's my father and my Aunt Mary Ellen on the farm. And some general just pictures of animals. Another truck from 1959. So So as we get down to the 1960s and 70s, one of the stories I wanted to share tonight was that in the early 60s, apparently we were hauling chickens. And my father wasn't too keen on hauling chickens, so one day he came home and told my grandfather that we're done hauling chickens. And he said, well, that's not true, we're gonna haul chickens, we're gonna continue doing that. So that's gonna be tough, because I just piled up all the chicken coops in the yard and burned them. So that's how we got out of the chicken business. So we started buying cattle and shipping to Packerland, and Patrick Cudahy continued doing that in the 60s and 70s. Duffy Brothers were incorporated by my father, John Duffy, in 1964. Duffy Livestock and Duffy Leasing were other businesses we had at that time that were incorporated, and trucks were leased to customers in the area. And we began hauling dairy cattle to Alaska, with feeder cattle being hauled back if we could. But the Alaska trip is one of those ones that is, there's a little bit more history and more things written down about that. So we'll get to that in a minute. But this is a picture of the stockyards, probably in that early 70s era. I have early memories of being in that building quite often, and probably terrorizing my father. Some early advertising that I always thought was neat to look at. I always enjoy seeing the number, the 451W to get a hold of Tom, 170W to get a hold of Joe Duffy at the time.
Interesting. Simpler times.
Buyers of livestock. And here we dealt in a lot. I mean, with trucking, even in my time on trucking, it really doesn't matter what's behind the truck, whether it's a hopper bottom trailer or reefer. Trucking's trucking. So as long as you have the power unit to pull something, you have the ability to get it somewhere. So we've dabbled in a little bit of everything over the years, including hauling tile to farms and water. My grandmother mentioned at times we'd even haul water to assist the fire departments to put out fires. So did a little bit of everything. Apparently there was always a dog named Jack. Which I guess there's multiple generations of Jack. It was a German Shepherd, but its name was always Jack. So in the background there you can see one of the original garages that was built I think in 1946. This picture is from 1961. That's always nice that they put the date on those little pictures. Right? It's really nice. So as we get into the 60s, that is a picture of my lovely parents, John and Joan Duffy. They met, they were high school sweethearts here at Columbus High School. And one story my mom always shared with me, this is the first time she laid eyes on my father. It was when my grandmother chasing my father around the yard with a wooden spoon because he had done something wrong. The first time she laid eyes on him. Love at first sight, apparently. My father attended the University of Wisconsin and graduated in 1960, and they were wed shortly after. Here we get to the story from the Alaska trips, which was it's fascinating to me. These are some of the trucks that went on the journey up there. Some of the newspaper articles that were written at the time. The Nails Dairy Farm in Juneau had hired Duffy Brothers to haul dairy cattle to Palmer, Alaska, which is I think roughly I have a map here exactly how far. Yeah, poor gentleman there. A little bit of technical difficulty because I lost my notes on my slides, so I'm a little bit going from off the cuff. But so some of the names. But yeah, the trip. Here's the trip from Columbus, Wisconsin to Palmer, Alaska. Currently, today, it's 3,387 mile trip. Back in the day, I don't think those roads were exactly the same. Maybe some new ones, maybe some paved ones. Some of the info from those trips, and some of the, Bob mentioned to me that he was one of the guys that went on one of those trips. I don't know if Jim maybe was, no, it was before your time. But, so Bob probably could fill us in a little bit later on the specifics if you'd like. But in 1971, 2 double-decker trucks were sent. 1972, 4 went up with 142 dairy cattle. There's a 1,100 mile stretch of that trip. That was from Dawson Creek, Canada, to the Alaskan border. That was all rock and gravel. So in preparation for that trip, they also took along with them 12 mounted tires, spare tires, to replace flat tires. But they only had 2 flat tires, so I guess it was a fortunate trip. So 70 bags of feed and 50 bales of hay were taken along, as well as 30 bales of straw to take care of the cattle as they went north. And I know late in my father's life, my mother and father took a trip and actually drove up to, it was probably year 2000 or so, drove to Alaska and visited some of those same farms up there who remember Duffy Brothers, and we're happy to meet my mom and dad at that point. So this is the original picture that was in the paper. Excuse me. This is in our stockyards here in Columbus. This is a picture of one of the trucks loading. As a kid, I never understood how they could get the trailers backed up to that dock because it was a pretty tight space to do it. But and if I ever learned bad language, that's where it's from. More pictures of the guys going to Alaska there. And one thing is I looked at pictures of the former employees and guys that had driven back in the day that struck me is you always saw how much pride they took in their work and they took in their trucks. And I know a lot of the guys that I've worked with that are in this room, they always did as well. It always struck me how much their work ethic and the pride they took in the work they did. So moving on from this into the 60s and 70s, again, during these years we also had an office in Beaver Dam that served as a livestock buying station. Short time we sold Kent feeds and seeds as well as hot shots. Anybody know what a hot shot is? It's the electric poking stick. You poke cattle with it to get them to move. Don't let your brother hit you with one. Late in the 1970s, Duffy Brothers purchased Armstrong Trucking, which increased our fleet by about 50% and increased the size of our trade area. And from what I understand, made things a lot busier for a long time. Some photos of the guys, again, getting all lined up in front of their trucks. I wanted to mention here in this picture, you can see the logo, but I have here all the logos were hand painted on the sides of the trucks by Freddie Shepard here in town for many, many years. So I think we enjoyed having him do that, and I still take pride in that script logo to this day. And again, guys with we always got pictures of the guys with their new trucks, and again, you could see how proud they were. Everyone always knew the Yosemite Sam one too. If you talk to people that know Duffy trucks, I don't ever know where that went. That would be a neat thing to have. One thing I want to point out on these trailers here too is you can see the older cattle trailers, they have the slats along the side. And as you get newer to more modern trailers, you go to these oval shapes. Another picture of some new trucks that were purchased and the drivers. The reason I point that out is because that is actually called the Duffy design. It's a design my father came up with, as far as I understand. And to this day, the design is to improve airflow through the trailer, as well as specially designed punch-outs that you can put in the sides of the trailer to seal it up in the winter so the cattle don't get cold. So it's used to the point that even Wilson Trailers, who sells these trailers, still mention the Duffy design in their advertising. Very small print, that's why I've got the arrow there pointing to it. But still, it does. If you search Duffy design in Google, you'll come to this flyer that, as of a few years ago, Wilson was still using. My early memories is I'm a cat person. But we always had office cats down at the yards there. So as I was going through some of the old pictures, I came across these two. I don't even remember their names, but taking a nap together. Then we move on to the 1980s. In the 80s, as the number of animals on the farm started to reduce, my father saw that the future was more in cash cropping in the area, to the extent that 1981 we purchased lands from the Klutzmans, where my dad built a 70-foot truck scale and some grain storage bins. Some of these former employees long-time employees can tell me if I'm wrong, but the story always was that we built these two bins and a scale because we started hauling grain to Milwaukee. My dad got sick of getting overweight tickets, so he built a scale so he could drop grain off the trucks so they'd be legal to go to Milwaukee. But that's not the greatest start to a business idea ever. But That is part of what we were doing back in the early 80s. And to support the development of business, the U.S. government offered incentives at that time to encourage building of grain storage facilities. So we took advantage of that and built some of the bins that we have here in Columbus. 1984, a new office building was constructed, and staff was finally able to move out of the scale house, which was reportedly very cold in the winter and very warm in the summer. The new building also included a heated wash bay for semis. My grandfather, Tom Duffy, passed in 1984. And then 1988, my brother joined the business after completing a bachelor's degree in economics at the University of Wisconsin. Here's a picture of one of the early grain hoppers that we had. And this is not an original picture of the original facility, but pretty close. You can see the two overhead bins that we had built that are still there today. The original scale house, which was actually a garage that was moved from the creek across the street, that still is part of the structure today. We just built on top of it. But yeah, that was the beginning of the grain end of the business. So this is the current view of the aerial view of our yard in Columbus. So in the 1990s, we continued to expand the Columbus grain location to increase storage capacities, increase drying speeds for bringing wet grain in from the farm and drying it down for storage. In the 90s, we also had a Goodyear tire store on the premises, which was in business for a few years until it was sold to an employee at that time, Dale Weatherwax, who then ran it as Action Tire across the street from us for many years. And finally, in the late 90s, we made the difficult decision to exit the livestock business. Packerland up in Green Bay had started adding their own trucks, and I think my dad saw the writing on the wall and thought this is the time to exit the business. He was getting on to the retirement age. My brother had joined the business, and I wasn't too far behind, maybe another 12 years. But 2002 is when I graduated, and I joined. I have a bachelor's in ag business management from UW-Madison. Unfortunately, we lost our father in 2002 to cancer, darn cancer. But in that same year, we broke ground in our Marshall facility. We have a facility just outside of, we call it our Marshall facility. It's technically closer to Sun Prairie, but it has a Marshall address. Broke ground on that, which is a rail facility, partially using funds from the Federal Railroad Infrastructure Improvement Program. And the goal is being to remove trucks from the roadways, which sometimes people ask me, why as a trucking company would you want to remove trucks from the roadways? In general, looking for efficiencies. So, the rail facility has a 25-car capacity. Each rail car can hold about 3,300 bushels of grain. A lot of people have a hard time knowing the size of a bushel, but if you kind of look at those buckets over there, it's roughly a bushel right there. A semi generally can handle 1,000 bushels. That's be a little bit overweight, but roughly, if you just for the easy math, there's 1,000 bushels on each semi. So one rail car can hold a little over three truckloads. So, and that totals up to 75 trucks removed from the road for each. 75 trucks removed from the road for each set of trains 25 cars we send out. So, it takes us roughly 8 hours to load 25 rail cars in Marshall, or about 90,000 bushel of grain. It's got an elevator leg that's rated at a capacity of 26,000 bushel an hour. So I joke that everything in Marshall is twice as big as it is in Columbus. So. Here's a picture of our Marshall facility with some of the rail cars that we had just loaded. And a lot of people don't know how grain elevators are constructed, but I can kind of give you an idea how at least a bin is. But this is the early construction of an elevator leg there. What you see at on the right there is the elevator leg, and on the left is the newer dryers. I grew up with a stack dryer. These are continuous flow dryers that are much more efficient. So we had built one of these in Marshall and then replaced our stack dryer in Columbus with that can dry grain at a top speed of about 4,000 bushel an hour, depending on how wet the corn is coming in. So this is our Marshall bin edition. To give you an idea, many of you probably have driven by our location here in Columbus, and the bin that's closest to the road, the biggest bin we have in Columbus is about 350,000 bushels, or 350 semi-loads. This bin that's being built right here and the bin next to it are 625,000 bushels, so twice as big as the biggest bin in Columbus. So, and the hard thing is when you drive by Marshall, it's so far set off the road that everything looks kind of small, but when you get up close to it, it's actually pretty sizable. So as you build a grain bin, what you do is you pour the cement on the bottom there, and you need to leave a false floor, because that's where the aeration comes in. And underneath here, you can see there's a tunnel system. So all those bins in Marshall, there's a tunnel system that connects the entire facility with 8-foot tall ceilings, about 10-foot wide hallways throughout the whole thing. That's where we force air through the tunnels and then up through the bin. So you build the false floor first, then you come back and you concrete in around it. And then as the first thing you build is the roof. And as you build the sides, you add the sides, then you jack the bin up, and you build it from actually the top down as it picks up in the air. So it's, I don't know how many bolts are in those bins, but there's a lot. To give you an idea how much we've moved out of our Marshall facility since we built it in 2002, we moved just shy of 27 million bushels of grain out of that facility, which is equal to 7,710 rail cars. But in the idea of the federal, the FRIP program, Federal Railroad Infrastructure Improvement Program, we've taken just shy of 27,000 trucks off the road over that time. But primarily, the key to our business these days is loading truck on farm. We have a tremendous customer base that we work with for many of them for their entire careers. Where we'll go out to the farm and we'll load grain on farm rather than the farmer bringing it to us. Some farmers find that advantageous, that they don't have to invest in equipment to bring the products to us. So I would say at least 50 to 75% of the grain we bring into our elevators is brought in on our own signs. And that's actually me loading on farm. I just washed my truck, so I was very proud of it. This is also me. What we do otherwise, as I said, we don't just haul grain on our hopper bottoms. We haul different feed products, fertilizer products, and then as well as our own grain. But this is me loading up at United Wisconsin Grain Producers, or UWGP, up in Friesland. So that's they're loading me with dried distillers grains. Generally, that facility doesn't load with an unloader; they just wear that day. So we got lucky to get a picture. The other products we haul are primarily wheat midds. Wheat midds are wheat middlings, which is a byproduct of the flour making process. So it's everything that's left over from the kernel of wheat after they've taken the germ out to make the flour. We haul soybean meal, a lot of different fertilizers. I'm trying to think of the other ones I had in my notes here now. Some salt, and yeah. But that's primarily my position right now. Is I dispatch the trucks. We run about a 250-mile radius of Rockford, Illinois, and deliver to different feed mills and grain elevators. Since grain hauled by our trucks since 1995, which is about as far back as our accounting would take us easily, right north. We've moved 10 million bushels of wheat out of the area, 17 million bushel of soybeans, 72 million bushel of corn, and that breakdown is about what the ratio is each year that we handle in corn, wheat, and soybeans. The capacity of our Columbus facility under a roof is 1.7 million bushels, and in Marshall is 1.65 million bushels. So between the two, we can handle just shy of 3.5 million bushels under a roof. We got out into the refrigerated trailer or refrigerated industry for a while. We got to the point where we were about 10 trucks in that industry, running the lower 48 with the exception of the Atlantic Northeast, because who wants to go there? It was an interesting foray, but we decided that we would rein it back in, and we got out of the reefer business after about 10 years and decided to stay doing what we do well, which is serving the local community and the local region with our trucks. So as we go through from the very first truck, we literally just added a truck the other day. So this is truck 189. So we numbered all the trucks all the way through. So this is our 189th truck. Literally just took delivery of it the other day, and it'll go on the road on Monday. And the miles that Duffy trucks have traveled just since January of 2000 is just shy of 29 million miles. So I figure if you extrapolate that to 1928, a Duffy truck is driven to the sun, which is about 93 million miles away. So along the way, we've endured quite a couple floods. Many of you, I know, remember the flood of 2008.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the flood of 1959? That was no fun. All the natural disasters that you can survive or go through, seems to me a lot of them you can, if they happen, you can start cleaning up the next day. We were underwater for 7 days here before we could even start to thinking about cleaning up, and it took us a good 6 months to get back to normal. This was, Nori's in the crowd here, this is the back of Nori's head, but this is our office for 6 months. It was the second floor of our office building in Columbus here. It was me, Nori, Marge, my brother Pat, once in a while Al, all cramped into one room for 6 months. So I found ways to not be in there as much as I could. When I mentioned earlier that we can hold the capacities that we can hold under roof, it's because at times we have to pile corn if we have a bumper crop, or at times if the crop comes too fast at us and we can't dry it fast enough, we'll dump it on the ground and pick it up later to dry it. But if we use all the available ground that we have here in Columbus to pile corn, we can get about 450,000 bushel of corn on the ground. It's not the most ideal way to do it, but we can't close our doors. Other ventures that we've gotten into since beyond that was we built Duffy Fleet Services across town. The reason we did that is we had many years in the shop. John Neesom's here is one of the mechanics that for years took care of our trucks, so we had an expertise in taking care of trucks over the years. And then with the vision and leadership of Troy Sauer, who's the manager over at DFS, we made the jump over to that side of town. Kind of figured somebody was going to build a shop over there at some point, so why not it be us? So we're proud of that endeavor, and it's going gangbusters. We are a warrantable Timpty trailer service location, so we have a partnership with Timpty Trailers. Through that all, one of the things that did this, you might remember this truck from the very first one I showed. Kind of what got it going was we started building what are called glider kits. I'm no mechanic. So it's one thing I can't expound on, but basically you're taking an older engine that's been rebuilt and put into a truck, and then they deliver you basically the truck not completely put together, so it's up to you to put them together and then get them on the road. And over the years, we built 7 of these right away for our own fleet, and then Troy and his team built about another 90 of them for other customers as well. So that was something that really provided work for us in what we did. So from what you see there, from that truck from the beginning, that truck in the 4th of July parade a few years ago, pulling the Dean County Farm Technology Days mascot tractor, I guess I'll call it. We were in the, you may have seen some of our trucks around town pulling flatbed trailers for a little while for Drexel. We did that until Drexel decided that they wanted to put their own trucks on, which I'm kind of glad they did, because that was tough work. So, but beyond that, what we're proud of as a family and as a business is investing in the Columbus community and the ag community in general. Some of the things that we do in the area. We do a lot of training with the fire department. Tim James, who's on my staff, who's an assistant fire chief in Fall River, does a great job bringing in the fire departments. One of the most dangerous things you can do in a grain elevator is enter grain bins, and every year people die getting swallowed up by grain. So we train our local fire department on how to rescue people from those situations, and Tim does a good job doing that. John Duffy, our father, has a scholarship here in town that is given to kids at the Columbus High School. We sponsor the agribusiness dinner here in town, which is a great event. If anybody ever, if you see those up, you should join, because it's a good time. Nori's on the team that sets the schedule there, and a lot of good entertainment over the years. Education for the 5th graders, I have a far greater respect for teachers in the area. Since that started, we have usually about 100, maybe 75 to 100 5th graders descend on the property. I have some pictures later, and they come through in waves, and we teach them different things about grain elevators, and we also have other volunteers that come in, whether it be Tom Prosser from Prosser or land sampling. So they all come in and help us teach the 5th graders about agriculture. We work with the FFA, been part of the hiring of the FFA teacher the last few go-rounds, and proud to say that the FFA department here in town has made a real good turnaround and is successful now. 35 jobs on average currently year-round provided by us here at Duffy's, in the representation of local and statewide trade associations across multiple generations. My grandfather, my father, my brother, and I served on many different boards within the community, within the ag community. Some pictures of the ag education program that we put on the bottom, the 5th graders that joined us last year. And some pictures of the training we've done where we'll have a person inside the trailer with grain in the trailer. We'll have them suck down a little bit, and then they put a cofferdam, is what it's called, around the person that's stuck in there, and then they work on rescue them at that point. We also housed all the vehicles during the 2009 Public Enemies. That was kind of a neat thing. I think it was John Dillinger's car was in our shop for a little while. They brought it out of storage in a museum in Illinois, brought it all the way up here. We were supposed to keep it undercover, and nobody was supposed to take the cover off. Of course, we took the cover off. I took pictures, but I can't find that one for some reason.
Do that.
But they ended up not using it in the movie, which was crazy. So. But yeah, overall, I mean, through this whole thing, I mentioned at the beginning that it's been a little bit of an education for me, and to the extent that if any of you out here over time has got stories or things that you'd like to share with us, we'd be more than willing to help. I brought a box of business cards here for my email, my phone number, if anybody would like them. But we always like I like this picture is when we had our grand opening in Marshall in 2003, I think it was. Shortly after my dad passed, there was a rainbow that came over the elevator as we were getting ready to pack up for the day.
Yeah.
And then not too long ago, I saw this rainbow outside. So we're very proud to serve the community and invite everybody to participate in these community events, and I appreciate Randy inviting me to do this. And yeah, if anybody has anything to add, any of the employees, older employees, or any questions, I take those at this time. Oh, if anybody's wondering what the view from the top of the elevator is, that's what it looks like. Go Cubs, go.
I have a question.
Any questions?
I have a question.
I was going to say, if you could repeat their question, and that way you can get on here.
Absolutely.
This is kind of a smart remark, but the high-speed rail between Watertown and Madison, you're one of the only people besides Portland Stone Quarry that uses that?
Yeah, the lumber yard there in Sun Prairie uses it.
Sun Prairie?
Yeah, they get a couple cars here and there, and then the one in Marshall as well. But yeah, it's very...
In Portland, they load stone there from the pit there.
Exactly. Yeah, that rail line, when we purchased land on that rail line, there was a real worry that it was going to be turned into a bike trail at one point.
Right. That's so you kind of saved it technically.
I don't know.
Now the government will start a railroad, a high-speed rail there.
Yeah,
and you'll have to watch out for fast-moving trains.
Yeah, I think they'll make adjustments for us.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting. I just was wondering.
Absolutely. Any other questions, comments?
Why, maybe I missed it. Why do you focus on 5th graders for your training?
It's a part of the FFA's program, is they, specifically with the 5th graders, that's kind of where they try to catch them at that age, as far as I understand. They do some with the elementary kids, but they, for like field trips like this where I think they need kids to be a certain age. But I think it's part of the FFA's recruitment process, for lack of a better way to put it. But it's fun. They come and they've got questions and they're interested. And I think if you get much younger, you might lose some of that. So, question, sorry there, Randy, was why do we focus on 5th graders for our ag education? Becky?
Can you change that slide?
No. Yeah, that was, as many of you, if you're not aware, the Cubs won the World Series. So the morning of the Cubs, because they didn't win the World Series until what, 2 o'clock that morning. But I marched to work very happily that next morning. I climbed all the way up to the top of the elevator leg to take my W flag up there and hang it. I got all the way up to the top of the W flag, and I don't know if my co-employees gave me bad information on purpose or if I didn't take the right tools up with me. So I had to climb all the way back down. It wasn't terribly warm that day either, but it is a pretty view from up there. Flag or not?
Better.
Any other questions?
The airflow on those cattle trailers, do you have a patent on that, or how did it?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
I don't know if that it was patentable. Patents can be a little bit tricky at times, but.
You should have though.
Yeah, we always, we wonder what would have been. Similar to when people ask me if I know what the grain prices are gonna do, which generally I either point them to my brother or I tell them if I knew what the grain prices were gonna be, I'd be sitting on a beach in Mexico and I wouldn't tell you. So. It's the markets for you. Any other questions? If anybody has any questions afterwards, I'll stick around, feel free to come talk to me. And again, if anybody in the crowd here has any photos or any stories they want to share with us, like I said, we're approaching our 100th anniversary. We're very proud of that, with the idea that we can build on this and fill in the blanks a little bit too.
Do you have a new generation coming up?
My wife and I have a stepson, my wife's son Will, who never know. My brother's got two young kids in college, and that don't currently work for the company, but that doesn't say they may not. My sister Erin has two twins, a girl and a boy, who are freshmen in college or high school right now. So nobody currently working in the business, but we've got some bright young kids coming up behind us.
Thank you, Ryan. That was a good. You did good.
I appreciate it.